My name is Matthew, and I'm a former extortion victim. Here's my story. I am aware this video puts me at risk of being sued for slander. For the statement to be considered slanderous in Ontario, it must be false and have been communicated to at least one third party, either intentionally or negligently, and caused harm to the person's reputation, financial hardship, or loss of opportunities. Those two elements have to be there. If there's one of them missing, I'm covered. The statements in this video will harm some people's reputations, however, they are not false. And I will actually prove that my statements are not false. This story begins on April 5, 2021. That's the day I began my studies at Toronto Film School in the acting program. During that time, there was a curious little virus affecting the world. In order to protect ourselves, we were attending class remotely. I was attending all the way back from Montreal. 3 months go on. In July, the school announces some classes will go back at being held in person. So I teamed up with a classmate to find an apartment in Toronto. The classmate I teamed up with is Melissa Putaro. She's known in her hometown of Brandon, Manitoba as a children's book author, and she's also a 40-year-old mother of 3 young children. Fast forward to August 21. Her and her husband Chris Putaro find an apartment. He also reaches out to me by text message for the first time. Do you want to see any documents from the condo to verify prices, deposits, payments, etc.? I respond, absolutely. I just wire transferred the first and last month rent this morning. Then, before September 1st, we need to send the last 4 months as well. Okay. Melissa sends me the lease. The rent is $3,550 a month, and we decided to divide that in 2 parties. Me and them. $3,550 divided by 2 is $1,775. Before September 1st, I need to transfer $14,200 in total, $7,100 coming from each of us. So we have to pay the first and last month of rent, that's normal. But we also have to send 4 months as well. Really? Okay. Tenant voluntarily agrees to provide landlord with an initial deposit of 4 months rent, which applies to the rent of April, May, June, and July 2022 before the commencing date. Tenant agrees to provide landlord 6... Actually, no, I'm gonna read that part later. Me, I was just too excited to finally have an apartment in Toronto that I didn't really read the lease entirely. So before September 1st, I transfer a total of $7,100 plus $3,550, which gives a grand total of $10,650. I transfer that to Chris, so he can pay the landlord. Because that's what they said. I have to provide my half, and they'll provide the other half. Very important sidebar right here. This is not the extortion I'm talking about. For me to hand them over $10,000 of my money, that's on me. That's my fault. It's my fault for not reading the lease properly before giving them money. It's my fault for giving money to people I've never met in person before. And it's my fault for blindly believing that they had good intentions with my money. The actual extortion is what happened 6 months later. On September 4, I moved to Toronto in my new apartment with the Putaros. 2 weeks later, on September 19, I announced my departure from the apartment because of an incident that happened earlier that week, and that made Melissa reveal her true colors. It doesn't matter what the incident is. What's important is that same night, we gather on a Zoom call when I was ready to retract my decision, and they said, oh, no, leave, go away. They made absolutely zero effort to restrain me from leaving the apartment. During that Zoom call, Chris came up with the idea of repaying me according to the months I paid in advance. A few days later, I went to Montreal for 1 week. I was expecting to take a vacation between 2 terms, but my vacation was anything but a vacation. I spent the whole week coming up with a plan to make sure that I get my money back. Eventually, I came up with one. I also spent that week looking for an apartment all the way from Montreal because I was gonna come back to Toronto without a home. So during that vacation week, I got another friend from the class to find an apartment for me. He eventually found one. The Putaros also got 2 new roommates to fill in for me, Emily Larman and Nicole Walker. I'll talk about those 2 later. On September 30, I come back to the apartment to grab the remaining of my stuff. And while I'm there, I make Chris and Melissa sign a loan agreement stating all the terms they came up with. They signed it, but Chris also added a clause at the bottom of the document. Based on Chris Putaro's lawyer approval on or before October 15, 2021. Written approval of contract will be in form of email between Chris and Matthew. So now I have their signatures, I have my belongings, I go in my new apartment in Brampton, 2 hours away from Toronto. I move in my new apartment, the new term begins. On October 15, no email. On November 1st, still no follow-up. I call Chris. I tell him that if he doesn't follow his own clause, I might take other actions. I'm not stating which ones. 2 days later, he sends me an email. I created a clause on the document that's stating that I require till October 15, 2021 for my lawyer to review and give me my legal advice. I apologize this time frame was exceeded, however, I have received some preliminary legal advice today and the lawyer would like more time to review. As you and I have previously discussed and you acknowledged on the phone/Zoom, by you only giving 11 days notice to moving out, you did not meet your verbal obligations either, which is why I believe this became slightly complicated. After this email, all communication between me and the Putaros were halted for like 5 months, until March 2022, 1 month before the scheduled repayment. On March 8th, I received an email from the TFS Student Code of Conduct Board saying that a student complained about me. 2 days later, I learned that this student is none other than Emily Larman. She complains about me for something that happened 2 months prior, for something that is not related to this money, something that is not related to the school, something that is completely personal between me and her. But what the hell? Why am I even talking about this? I just admitted that it has nothing to do with the money. Let's move on. On March 14, Nicole Walker, the other roommate, reaches out to me on WhatsApp and asks for the lease. Me, I have nothing to hide. Sure, here it is. And this leads us to March 18.